Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Immanuel Nugroho and my lesson name is 2107. So in this video, I will share my adjudication about debate that is for final test of English debate. So for the first, I will give my comment about the opening government. So begin by explaining that increasing taxes on the vacant housing can help solve the housing crisis by reducing speculation and encouraging property owners and reduce the dominance of the rich in owning properties. And their rebuttal came during the Deputy Prime Minister's speech responding to the Leader of Opposition's points about the property tax PBB, multiple property ownership, rising property prices each year, and a family inheritance. However, the rebuttal was not strong enough to support the opening government stance on the motion, and the OG team mostly focused on the tax issue. And overall, OG presented their arguments clearly and gave some good responses. However, the Deputy Prime Minister relied too much on a reading from a script, and the rebuttals given were still not strong enough. And for opening opposition, the opening opposition is focused on the unfairness of a significant tax increase on the properties that are already taxed and owned by Indonesian citizens, who in general are still struggling to afford a house. OO was able to give a logical explanation and real-life example that match in the situation in Indonesian society. It's like people who in minimum salary it's are still trying to hard buy a house. I think it's the best examples because it's a real life example in Indonesian, and in particular the rebuttal from the deputy leader of opposition was very strong. As I mentioned before, is pointing out the reality that many people earning below the minimum wage are still trying hard to buy a house. And OO delivered their arguments and example clearly and effectively. And however, during the deal speech, they rejected a POI. And this should be noted because accepting POIs can help the team to earn more points. And then for closing government, so the closing government was able to fill the gaps left by the opening government by providing the more solutions and the justifications, especially about how the tax would be allocated. And they also introduced a new argument that the tax gives a realistic option, sell, rent or pay, instead of confiscating property. And however, some Sigi's arguments were repetitive and didn't add much difference. Also, the transitions between their points were a bit unclear. This could be improved by organizing the arguments more clearly, avoiding repetition, and using clear signposting when changing to a new point or a new arguments. And last for closing opposition, the closing opposition focused on how the policy goes against the Indonesian government's interest in providing affordable house, harms migrant workers, and worsens the housing market for vulnerable groups. They also explain the impact on the urban and suburban working class people clearly. And however, like Sigi, some arguments were repeated in CO, and they didn't offer clear alternative solution. This could be improved by focusing on the main issue and thinking the best solution while also adding a new layers of argumentation. However, all teams were able to deliver their arguments well, and each team showed a good confidence. And as an adjudicator, I rank the teams as follows. The first place for opening opposition, Universitas Kristen Indonesia, and the second place for closing opposition as a Universitas Brawijaya, and the third place for a closing government, Universitas Atmajaya Jakarta, and the fourth place for opening government or Universitas Surabaya. So I think that's all from me. Thank you and see you again.